So right, this is the letter to Speaker Pelosi.
Oh, I want the one to the president.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this is the White House. I'll just download it. So all you'll need to do is just drag it to the right, and it'll show up right here.
Okay.
All right.
And will it be big enough?
So what I'll zoom in.
Okay.
So
Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have everyone's attention for a moment. Can everyone make their way to their seat so we can get started? All right, thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Shawnice King. I am the co-symposium coordinator and the Summer Scholars coordinator. I'm going to be introducing Leslie Fields. Leslie Fields is the National Director, Policy Advocacy and Legal at Sierra Club in Washington, D.C. Could we please have Leslie join us so she can give the award to Dr. Wilson?
Good afternoon, everybody. Is everybody having a good time? Everybody gotten smarter? Yes. Everybody gotten more connected? Yes. I have the great honor and privilege to present the Sierra Club National Environmental Justice Robert Bullard Award to my very good friend, dear colleague, I'm gonna start to cry, Dr. Sacoby Wilson, the director of this domain and the Center for here at the University of Maryland. And I'm just absolutely thrilled. As you all know, Dr. Sacoby has been a game changer on environmental justice, his scholarship, his advocacy. He's a scholar activist. He comes from the community, is of the communities, and I just couldn't be more prouder that he's going to receive this award, but also he's just been so inspirational to all of us and has created this center here at the University of Maryland and this conference, which is now the premier environmental justice conference in the country. And so take it. It is. And so I just want to come up here, Sacoby, get this really heavy award, because I left it at home and I had to run back and get it. And so I don't want to leave it anywhere else. So thank you, Sacoby, for everything you've been doing on behalf of environmental justice and communities. And it's my pleasure to present to you the Robert Bullard Environmental Justice Award from Sierra Club.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you. We love you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Oh, well, ovation. Oh, look at that. Y'all know it's after lunch. Y'all need to exercise anyway. Public health, y'all. Do a little bit of stretching. Okay. Thank you. I really do. I really do appreciate this award. As many of you know, I think I mentioned earlier in a little quip to Dr. Chavis that I met him and Dr. Bullard in 1995 at a conference at Elizabeth City State, which is Historical Black College in North Carolina. It was part of the ECO program, which was a program funded by the EPA. So, you think about, pathways to getting here. I wouldn't be here without that funding. With Marva, would you say Marva? Office of Environmental Justice. So think about it. That's 1995, and it's several years later. I'm here now. So, and I met Dr. Bullard. I got dumped in Dixie sign that day. And I said, "Ooh, I'm gonna do this." And I was so excited, y'all. Y'all know I get excited. I was grinning. Met him, Dr. Chavis, and so he's had a huge impact on my career as a mentor, really from long distance, and also, as you may or may not know, he's also an Alabama A&M grad. So who knew you have two generations of EJ scholar advocates who came from the same HBCU, right? And so that's really exciting. But I'm very, humbled to get this award. I like to say jokingly that I'm like James Brown, the hardest working man in EJ. Y'all know I be on that that chitlin circuit, doing work with communities and doing work presentations and grinding. And I tell my colleagues and people I work with, I mean, y'all don't know some of these old school songs like with Big Daddy Kane, I do work, right? T.I., motivation, you got to get on your job. EJ doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, y'all. EJ doesn't stop with your seasons. I don't stop at 5 o'clock. Thank you for that correction. Right. So it's important for this work to have folks who are committed to it. Right. People are suffering. So for me to get this award means I've been putting in work for communities impacted by environmental justice. I'm putting in work for folks who look like me, who came from communities like my community with a landfill sewage treatment plant. Right. It means that I'm honoring, those who came before me. Right. I'm honoring folks like Dr. Bullock, Peggy Shepard, people still here doing work like Vernice Miller-Travis. And those of you who remember the story, and I'm talking way too much, I need to get to Reverend Yearwood, so I'm gonna do that soon. But those who remember the story, I told many of you when I defended my PhD, I thank my ancestors there as well. I thank Carter G. Wilson. I thank Harriet Tubman. I thank Booker T. Washington. I thank Frederick Douglass. I thank Marcus Garvey, right? I thank all those, Malcolm X. I think all those folks that came before me, Sojourner Truth, all those folks that came before me for me to do this work. This has been a struggle for 400 years, as Chavis said, right? This is the work that we're committed to. And so this award is a recognition of that commitment, of that legacy. I honor them. I honor everybody in the movement. Those who are here today. And just to be quiet, I really do appreciate this award. And again, it's not about me. It's about the community. It's about the work. It's about the justice. So thank you again. And to get us back on schedule, I'm going to transition now. Y'all hold on a second. So we have our lunchtime keynote speaker today. And many of you may or may not know him, but his name is Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr. And so he is the 11th annual Siege keynote lecture. So you may have heard the term Siege today, community engagement, environmental health. We've had 10 other speakers who talked about environmental justice work as part of this annual lecture. Folks like Omega Wilson with the Western Revitalization Association, Vernice Miller-Travis has spoken before, Dr. Robert Bullock has spoken before. We have icons who are doing this work to address environmental justice, climate justice, energy justice. Today, Reverend Yearwood is going to talk about these issues and how, again, we build community power, right? This theme is energy versus power, but it's been modified. You need energy to build power. So he's going to talk about that in his keynote lecture today. But Reverend Yearwood is the president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. He's a minister, a community activist, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and one of the most influential people in hip hop political life. He entered the world of hip hop politics as the political and grassroots director for the Hip Hop Summit Action Network in 2003 and 2004, and as a key architect of P. Diddy's Vote or Die campaign in a run-up to the 2024 presidential election. To carry the energy of the efforts beyond Election Day, he founded the Hip Hop Caucus in September 2004. The goal of the caucus is to build a powerful and sustainable organization for the culture's role in the civic process and empowerment of communities impacted first and worst by injustice. So let's welcome Reverend Lennox Yearwood to the stage. He's gonna give us a tremendous keynote and keep us moving again as it relates to environmental justice, how we get this power, energy and power to address these issues. Reverend Yearwood.
It's an honor to be here on this day. And I already knew this gathering would be important for a number of reasons. But clearly after the events of this week, the stakes have become higher for so many different reasons. I want to start off by saying thank you for having me here. I have always loved the University of Maryland. One of the fun facts is that before I went to a Black college and got my bachelor from a Black college and my graduate degree from a Black college, and I love Black colleges. I played a little basketball, and I went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. Yeah, there you go. I see they got some retrievers in the house. And the University of Maryland would invite us like a little stepbrother to play basketball. But I heard in the past few years that's changed now, so that's a good thing. That's no longer the case anymore. But today is a very important day for a lot of reasons. And then when I came into the room and I saw many of my friends, it even became even more important. So let me first start off, one of the things that's not in the bio, but it's very important about who I am, is my mentor. One of the people who mentored me, I was very unique because there weren't many men who were mentored or brought into the inner circle of this person for many years, was Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. So I was very fortunate to be mentored by Dr. Height, and that shapes me. So before the hip hop stuff, I want to just give a little bit of background onto who was telling me a lot about the movement and a lot of wisdom. The one thing that I realized then, that I know now, if you take nothing from this conversation we're going to have, is that if we want to be successful in dealing with the climate crisis that we are in, and it's a real crisis, if we want to be successful, then our leadership has to be a BIWOC leadership, meaning that if we have a Black, brown, indigenous, women of color leader movement, we will succeed. If we don't have that, then we should really not take the tax breaks of the EVs from the IRA and just go out and get any kind of gas guzzler you want to get, because we are not going to be successful. Now, I know that might not have hit some of y'all the right way, but I wasn't brought into this movement. I want to thank Dr. Sacoby and my friends who have been around, like my dear brother Mustafa Ali and many others. Even though they are in the wrong fraternity, I won't go down that line today. I'm gonna keep looking away from that area. But he got on the right colors today, that's for sure, if there's anything about that. But the one thing that I will say is that I didn't come up, honestly, in the environmental justice movement. While I appreciate my days of working with Dr. Chavis, actually at the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, and I definitely appreciate my days of being around my dear brother Damu Smith when I was doing anti-war work, I honestly didn't come up in this movement. So for young people, I think that's important, that you can come into this movement however you want to come into this movement, as long as you want to save your people and put your people first. So that's important. I didn't come into this movement understanding a white lens or white fragility or a white space. I didn't come into this movement that way. As a matter of fact, as a kid, I didn't even know, but the one who used to help my mama actually raise me was Dr. Beverly Wright. and she'll tell the story about how she would change my diapers. And so I beat her to the punch today and telling that embarrassing story that she likes to talk about, that brickhead, I have red hair, baby she used to take care of down in Louisiana. I say that's important because I want to get somewhere. Because where I want to get to is that I don't have, and I don't use this word randomly, I don't have the shackles of a movement that is based in Vermont or in Sonoma County, California. And so I stand here not with that lens. So I don't want to disrupt your lunch today because of the things I'm going to say. I'm taking my preacher time in a way to work my way into it so that you are not stunned by what is coming out of my mouth. And partly because I don't really care what you feel, what comes out of my mouth, I am also speaking to those who've been in this movement for 30 years, and they need to hear a word today. They need to be re-encouraged today. They need to understand where do we go at this moment today. Because when you have a PhD, and you are an amazing, beautiful woman of color, and you have a teenage young person who's not of color telling you what to do, that can be damaging when folks are letting that person, or when that foundation has somebody who's not a person of color. Let me get to my. Let me also just think. I'm gonna get too deep right there. I don't want to get too deep. Let me thank some of the folks who I admire so much. Leslie Fields, Bernice Miller Travis, so many of the people who I've met, my dear brother, our preacher friend from Green Church. I thank you all for being here, and I admire you so much. You are the reasons why I do this work with integrity and with passion. You keep me accountable and measurable, and I pray that we continue to do that for each other. Let me also say this, who's not here in the room, but has joined the ancestors. I want to say that for this person who is my exact same age, but is not here, is Cecil, who's not here, Corbin Mark, and I bring him into this space because he is going to also reinforce what I'm going to say, because this work has literally killed people in this work. And I really want to save the future, but I want to save the folks who are doing this work as well. So let me get to what I want to talk about for a little bit. The tone of my opening goes into this, and it really follows the words of Dr. Martin Luther King and his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Community or Chaos? And we are truly at a moment now when many of us are on one hand celebrating the Inflation Reduction Act for countless years of work. We're excited about the fact that that bill will put us on a path, hopefully, when all the numbers come out, to being at 40% reduced emissions, or at 2005 levels by the end of this decade. We are excited about the fact that there will be tax breaks that will incentivize both solar and wind and get folks to buy electric vehicles and getting charging stations, hopefully in one's community that looks like the ones that represent are here. I'm excited by the fact that this will deal with those in West Virginia who will then deal with the black lung disease and put to them. I'm excited about a number of things in the bill. But what I realize here is how vicious the fossil fuel industry is. That they will give you the carrot, but they will be attached to a stick. And in the process of putting out the good things, there are a number of bad things in the bill as well. And when I think about the bad things in the bill, it puts me in a position when I have to really think, is this good at all? Is this really something that I can assign my name to? Because on one hand, I've been fighting forever. I'm originally, I mentioned, from Louisiana. I saw family and friends drown in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And just last year, less than a year ago, on August 29th, on the same day as Hurricane Katrina, I saw family and friends again horrified what happened with Hurricane Ida. So I understand the climate crisis more than anybody. I understand what it means to see a crisis and to have your family and friends left behind in the richest country in the world. I understand what it means to have folks like my dear Mama D, Diane French Cole on Derjewan Street in the 7th Ward, who literally would not evacuate, but would stand in her house on Derjewan Street. And because she lived in a neighborhood that had mostly seniors in it, 80 and 90, she stayed behind in her 70s to make sure that when their bodies were floating down the street, her and her son would go out there and catch the bodies and tie them to the tree. And because she said, these are my neighbors, and I can't allow black folk who sat in the back of the bus in New Orleans, who fought through Jim Crow and segregation, I can't allow for them folk to just float down the street. And so I got to go out there in my 7-year-old middle-aged slim self and tie them to a tree so they can be identified. I understand this climate crisis. This ain't about no planting trees and recycling. That's important too, but I understand this a climate crisis that gives you nightmares in the middle of the night. I understand the climate crisis where I'm thinking about those babies who can't breathe in Michigan and Flint. I understand the climate crisis when there are folks who are in boardrooms who are sitting around, putting together a business plan that means a death sentence to my communities. I understand this climate crisis more than anybody understands this climate crisis. So if I want to see something get fixed, please understand I want to see it get fixed. But I can't see it get fixed on the backs of somebody else. I can't see it get fixed by picking and choosing, particularly low income, sacrifice zones, black, brown, and indigenous. I cannot see, even poor white folk, I cannot see it get fixed on the backbone of those who you deem as the path of least resistance. I can't sign on to that. I'm sorry. And I can't celebrate that. Now I want a bunch of these boards, from the League of Conservation Voters to Evergreen Action. I hang around folks at Sierra Club and NWF. And I'm gonna tell you something. I don't understand how you can celebrate so readily, knowing that folks are going to be left behind, thrown under the bus, and die. You can't celebrate that. You got to come out there, grit your teeth, do your shaking your hand, sign your document, and be like, I'm going to work. Ain't no smiling here. Ain't no happy days here. Ain't no high-fiving here. When folk gonna die, I'm sorry if some of y'all got that on your business card today. But I just gotta speak some truth right now. On this day, we can't allow for that. And so we're in this moment where we gotta ask ourselves, where do we go from here? Community or chaos? So I wanna read this letter that was written by the Green Leadership Trust. The Green Leadership Trust is an organization of the Black folk and the brown folk and the indigenous folk who sit on these boards. Now, it's important. There aren't many Black and indigenous and brown folk on these boards. And so we figured out that we got to figure out our own board so we can make really one board together. So we just got to figure out. And most people, some are in the room right here, and they know they're on this letter. And so we put together a letter because there's only like 2 or 3 of us. And that's another problem. I'm gonna get to that one later. I'm not gonna let that one slide. Because if we're asking for just as 40 on the outside, it should be just as 40 on the inside. But I'm gonna put a pin there till I come back to that one. But I wanna read this letter. So I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna try and move this. I see I get some help coming to the front right now to help me move this. Give it up for the folks who help you when you need help. Thank you so much. Oh, that's the, hold up, before you go, that's the wrong, we don't want the Schumer, we want the President Biden letter. We want the head honcho letter. Leslie, can I have that drink next to you? That drink, the grape juice, the iced tea. Thank you. Got it. Do it right one. Make it a little bigger. See on the screen. Got it? Okay. Can y'all see that? Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna read in my loudest voice because I'm not right here at the mic, but you can also read it for yourselves in this aspect. So this is the letter that was sent by the Green Leadership Trust. Let me. The letter's not. Might need help with the letter on this to get it to go down. Okay. Yeah. So hit the couldn't go down.
Yeah, so it's going down
On the screen?
on the screen.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So,
Okay. If it's going on the screen, I can just pull up my phone and you can just monitor on there. I'll just read it here. You do that. All right. Yeah, just do that and we'll do it together. Teamwork makes the dream work. So this is the letter from the Green Leadership Trust. I want to put this, I want to put this into the record. And the folks here, like Bernice and others, so they've already gave me the nod that this is appropriate in this setting. This letter reads as follows. Dear President Biden, the Green Leadership Trust is a cross-organizational network that builds the power of the environmental movement by expanding the impact and leadership of Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and all people of color serving on its boards of directors. We have been part of decades of groundwork that catalyzed both the White House and the Congress advancement of climate agenda that recognizes how radicalized communities, racialized communities, and working people are critical constituencies in the battle against climate change. As we are on the brink of the passage, and it did pass yesterday, of historic energy, climate legislation through Congress, we, the undersigned members of the Green Leadership Trust, GLT, are deeply disturbed by ways that the Inflation Reduction Act diminishes that climate agenda. We are deeply troubled that several of the Act's provisions will delay progress through just climate policies because of its failure to address the core environmental and economic well-being of communities. We urge the administration and our own environmental movement to reckon with how essential community is injured by the act to immediately respond with climate policies, regulations, and curative legislation that can respond to the harm it will produce. The Inflation Reduction Act contains provisions that will unleash technological responses to the climate crisis, allocating billions of dollars for clean energy and vehicles and other incentives. The act invests billions in industrial and infrastructure investments. It has the potential to provide the needed housing upgrades and jobs. It also aims to improve air quality and ensure access to clean drinking water. However, the legislative includes relatively modest levels of investment in the environmental justice communities that have suffered disproportionately from our nation's reliance on fossil fuels. In our analysis, the legislative package will expand sacrifice zones to compound harm to our communities. Similarly, we are concerned that the majority of mainstream environmental organizations have failed to elevate these concerns. Specifically, we are alarmed about the following provisions. Provide generous tax credit, but as a result, neglects the pocketbook support that working people will need to move away from fossil fuels, like increased mass transit, income independent subsidies for shifting to electric appliances and other forms of progressive economic incentives. In addition, a reliance on tax credits to polluters has net economic effects on subsidizing them and undermining critical sources of revenue. Polluter, the polluter pays. We all need to move toward efficiency and renewables. Includes support for carbon capture and sequestration, CCS. The administration must plot a course back towards power plant policy that is both environmentally sound and politically sustainable. It must ensure that CCS neither extends the life of plants that should be mothballed ASAP, nor extends the toxic pollution risk that fence line communities already face. Mandates that the federal government offer of parts of the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska's Cook Inlet for oil and gas development. It also requires additional oil and gas leasing in order for new wind and solar projects to be approved. Grants extra legal approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, a project which has been opposed for years by environmentalists, civil rights activists, and many Democratic state lawmakers in Virginia, which would carry natural gas from the Marcellus shale fields in West Virginia across nearly 1,000 streams and wetlands before ending in Virginia. Provides for an odious side deal to approve a separate bill that would make it harder for opponents to challenge energy projects under the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act, a bedrock environmental law, by setting a 2-year time limit for challenges, my God, requires the president to establish 25, quote, priority, end quote, projects on federal lands that must include fossil fuels and nuclear energy. Revises a section of the Clean Water Act in a way that would make it more difficult to block or delay pipeline projects, and overlooks and excludes community-based financial institutions such as NDIs, CFIs, and credit unions from directly benefiting and thus enabling climate finance. In addition to those devastating compromises, we are exasperated by the continued reliance on exclusive and undemocratic processes for public matters, the impacts of which is that the fossil fuel interests had more of a say in the making of game-changing legislation than the people whose health and safety are determined by its contents. Our members are lifelong advocates from impacted communities of color, and while we understand high-stakes deal-making, we reject compromises that continue to put fossil fuel developments at the center of our nation's economy. We cannot abide by the continued willingness by our nation's leadership to sacrifice the lives and health of our communities on the altars of greed and political expediency, and certainly not for bargains that are unsustainable, unjust, and morally unconscionable. In this moment, we remain committed to our life's work of protecting the sacred and the sustainable. We affirm that the future requires us to speak out. In our collective capacity, we stand committed to the long-term fight for equity, justice, and a better future for our children and this planet. Sincerely, the Green Leadership Trust. So I just want to say we're at a moment. And so I want to say a couple of things in closing that I think are things that we must do. The first thing, I think that the environmental justice and health disparities community must break the kiddie table mentality that is persistent in this movement. I think for too long, we have been put at a kiddie table off to the side and not respected. That is actually very much not in word and deeds, but also in funding. The New School did a survey in which they looked at the 12 largest foundations who gave out $1.3 billion over a 1-year span. Out of that $1.3 billion in a 1-year span, only 1.3% went to EJ and BIPOC-led organizations. That means, mathematically, this gathering does not matter financially to the climate movement. That must change if we are to be successful. That's the first thing. The second thing in this process is that because we cannot change the bill, we must do everything in our power to show solidarity as a movement with those in Appalachia, in Alaska, and the Gulf Coast. The harm, the pain, and the trauma they have faced, we must now be with them in solidarity in every shape and form to fight against the leases on land and water, and also where they are fighting from hydrogen to petrochemicals in their community. We must stand with them at this moment if nobody else will stand with them. And the last thing, as we approach the 30-year anniversary of the executive order on environmental justice next year, to the young people, you are critical at this time. I don't need you to be afraid of the moment. I don't need you to get caught up in a lot of things that can distract you. I need you to understand that you are fighting literally for our existence. Our parents fought for equality in the 20th century, but now you are fighting for existence in the 21st century. I need you to understand that you are fighting, and to be honest, I need you to not fight with friends who you think are your allies. I need you to fight with folks who you feel have your same interests. I want to be very clear. I know that this state and our movement has been a place where it has been solely run by politically one party. I think we should be mindful of that, and that's fine. But I think we should always hold them accountable. One of the best things that ever happened to me personally was when I was arrested outside of the Bush White House, and I was arrested outside of the Obama White House. And I was arrested again outside the Trump White House. And if the way things keep going, I may find some time in the Hooskow in the Biden, outside the Biden White House. What I'm saying to you is that your truth and your integrity cannot lie only within a party. It has to lie within your people. As your people go, there you go. I need to. And I need to say this to you. One of the hardest things I had to do was right here, Sacoby, in the DMV. I don't need my speech no longer for this part of the story. And the hardest thing I had to do was that a mother who had a number of kids over in Southeast DC had one of her children who was the good one, the good daughter. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. The one who would take care of the other children, who would come home and iron the clothes and fix a meal. The young one who was old for her age. But she didn't know that 65% of people of color live within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. Right here in DC, right there in Southeast. And what she didn't know is that when it's clear outside, something that's called particulate matter, that's still in the atmosphere, that you can't see with your naked eye. And what she didn't know is that because she had to pay bills for her children, is that she had to then play Russian roulette with getting her daughter, that one daughter who was 14, an inhaler, or judge if it's a good day and put food on the table. And when she came home one day, she found that daughter, that beautiful little baby black baby girl, in the middle of the living room floor with an empty inhaler that had obviously fallen out of her hand. And that baby, that beautiful black angel, that should have gone to a school like this and been your classmate died because of those same folks who are doing deals with Manchin about our future. And so they asked me to do that funeral. I do more than talk about EJ and health disparities. I might have to do a funeral in the hood every once in a while. And so while I'm doing that funeral, Bernice, the entire time I'm doing that funeral, and it's something about a child's casket that just takes your heart away to begin with. When it's only about that big, and it's sitting up front. The mother felt so guilty that she tried to get into the casket. And her sisters and cousins would take her to the back, and she would get away and make a flying running start and would try to run into the casket, and that baby's arm would fly out the casket. As I'm trying to do this eulogy of that baby who lived not too far from where I'm standing right now, I'm thinking about that child should not be in that casket. But folks are playing games with babies' lives. And so I just come by here to tell you, if you're here because it's about a job advancement, this ain't the place for you. If you're here to get a grant or to get your organization going or to be big time, this ain't really for you. Because people are dying in our communities right now. People are dying because folks are willingly giving them lead and poison. They're willingly polluting them. They're willingly digging their ground up and putting down pipelines. And so if you're here to play games with these folks, then I'm gonna tell you, play your games, get your money, get your degree, go down to Annapolis, hang out by a boat. But if you're about fighting for the people and fighting for what we got to do to save our communities and save our planet, then gird yourself up, revigorate yourself, get ready for the fight, stand up, speak truth to power, and let's go get them. We will not fail. We cannot fail. We must stand up for the babies who are dying in the streets. We must rise up. We must rise up. We must rise up. All power to the people. All power to the people. All power to the people.
I can't even follow none of that. Y'all heard what he said. Rise up. Stand up. Power for the people. Those babies. Can't be playing games with people's lives. EJ don't stop, right? So let me be quiet. Thank you. Let's thank Reverend Yearwood again, please. I mean, mic drop. That's not a mic drop, that's a life drop. I mean, thank you for that, sir. So that's a serious message for us to move forward with that bill and other bills. So I'm going to get us to the next session. I know y'all got to digest that. I know we need a little bit of time, Rev, for dropping that knowledge and that spirit on us. Well, let me say a few things before we transition. I want to, and it says here, I'm going to do like somebody does. It says slow down. Who does that sometimes? Like, you know, the teleprompter? I'm being bad. So announcements, y'all. So I want to give a shout out to the Summer Scholars. Our first class of EJ Summer Scholars. Can y'all stand up real quick if you are EJ Summer Scholar? Come on, Summer Scholar, get some love. I want to recognize our elected officials in the room. Want to make sure I recognize before they roll out. So Delegate Larry Lambert from Delaware. Delegate Lambert. Selena Singleton, Montgomery County Council. One of my main supporters, Jolene Ivy, Prince George's County Council. I want to thank some of the sponsors that are here in person. Alexandra McBride, can you stand up? Christopher Upperman, are you here from Meta? Christopher here? He's not here yet. He's gonna be here presenting. Climate Exchange, Wandra, you here? Sarah Club, Leslie. We got the EPA. They have an exhibit, Office of Women's exhibit. So if y'all want to go check that out, thank you, EPA. Environmental Defense Fund, thank you as well. So we are a little bit behind, but I really want to again say thank you to Reverend Yearwood. Like, you shouldn't be clapping and excited and fist pumping off of that bill. So thanks for bringing it back and being serious in the moment about what we need to do to move forward to make sure we're not continuing to pimp people's pain, right? Dumping on folks, poisoning people, and continuing environmental slavery. It ain't just environmental racism. You're talking about the Gulf Coast, you're talking about Appalachia, you're talking about Alaska, you're talking about environmental slavery. So thank you for that message, and we can move forward. So we're gonna move to our next set of sessions, concurrent block 2? Is that 3? 2, concurrent block 2. So moderators, go ahead and move to the room. Speakers, move to the room. Thank you, everybody. And remember, please stay for after the 6 o'clock panel, after the panel, because we have plenty of food. I need at least 200 miles to eat that food. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day, and hopefully see you for the after event celebration.